There's a money rule, written in 1812 in Frankfurt, Germany, by a dying man named Mayer Amschel Rothschild. At that moment, he controlled the largest banking fortune in Europe. His 5 sons ran operations in 5 different countries. The family was worth approximately $3 billion in today's money, and he knew exactly what would happen next. See, Mayer understood something that every other wealthy family in history somehow forgot. Money doesn't disappear because you spend it. Money disappears because you split it, between children, between cousins, between people who didn't build it and don't know how to keep it. So he wrote one rule into his will, one instruction that would echo through the next 200 years. Only men could inherit the business. Daughters would get dowries, but never ownership. Sons would work together, never divide the empire. And here's the critical part. They would marry within the family. Sounds medieval, right? But here's what happened. In 1830, 18 years after his death, the Rothschild fortune had grown to approximately $7 billion in today's terms. By 1850, they were worth more than $50 billion. The Vanderbilt family, at their peak in 1877, were worth $143 billion in today's money. By 1973, when 120 Vanderbilt descendants gathered for a family reunion, not a single one of them was a millionaire. Not one. The Rothschilds? Still worth an estimated $400 billion to $2 trillion today, depending on who you ask. And nobody knows for sure because they learned another trick along the way: silence. So what did they figure out that everyone else missed? Let's start with the man who built the code. Mayer Amschel Rothschild died in 1812, but he'd been planning for this moment for decades. He had 5 sons: Amschel, Solomon, Nathan, Carl, and James. And instead of doing what every rich father does, splitting the inheritance 5 ways and watching it evaporate, he did something different. He kept it whole. Here's how it worked. Each son would run a branch of the family bank in a different European capital. Amschel in Frankfurt, Solomon in Vienna, Nathan in London, Carl in Naples, James in Paris. 5 brothers, 5 cities, 1 bank. They didn't compete, they coordinated. When France needed a loan, James in Paris would handle it, but the capital came from all 5 brothers. When Britain wanted to finance a war, Nathan in London would arrange it, backed by his brothers across Europe. It was like having 5 ATMs connected to one account. And here's the genius part. Profits didn't get divided at the end of each year. They got reinvested into the family pool. The Rothschild fortune wasn't 5 separate fortunes. It was one massive pile that kept growing because nobody could take their cut and walk away. Compare this to literally every other wealthy family in history. The Astors. John Jacob Astor died in 1848, the richest man in America, worth about $121 billion today. He split his fortune between 2 sons. They split it between their children. By 1890, the money was so divided among descendants that individual inheritances were small. The Astor fortune fragmented like glass hitting concrete. The Carnegies. Andrew Carnegie sold his steel company for $310 billion in today's money. He gave most of it away, which is noble, sure, but his descendants? They're comfortable, not dynasty-level wealthy. Even the Rockefellers, who understood wealth preservation better than most, split into different branches. The family is still rich, absolutely, but the concentrated power? Gone. Diluted across hundreds of descendants. But the Rothschilds kept it tight, and they had another trick. A controversial one that makes modern people uncomfortable, but worked exactly as intended. They married each other. Between 1824 and 1877, of the 58 Rothschild marriages, exactly half were between first cousins. 16 were between more distant cousins. Only a handful married outside the family entirely. It sounds insane today, but think about it from a pure wealth preservation perspective. When Nathan's daughter married James's son, the money stayed in the family. No outsider got a piece. No divorce could split the fortune. No stranger could inherit a share and sell it off or squander it. This wasn't about genetics or keeping bloodlines pure or any of that nonsense. This was accounting. Cold, calculated, financial engineering. And it worked. By 1850, the family had married itself into an unbreakable financial fortress. The wealth couldn't leak out through marriages because there were no outside marriages. Every dowry, every inheritance, every transfer of assets was internal. The fortune circulated like blood in a closed system. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's weird. That's morally questionable. And you're right, it is. But here's the thing they understood that nobody talks about. Wealth is tribal. Let me break down what I mean by that. In 1860, there were approximately 45 Rothschild family members actively involved in or benefiting from the banking empire. Not thousands, not hundreds. 45 people sharing a fortune worth tens of billions. Compare that to the Vanderbilts again. By 1973, there were 120 direct descendants. By 2020, estimates put the number of living Vanderbilt descendants at over 400. Each generation, the pie gets sliced thinner. Your great-great-grandfather was the richest man in America, and you're middle class. That's the math of inheritance without a code. But the Rothschilds didn't just limit who got the money, they limited who could manage it. Only sons, only men. Daughters got generous dowries, enough to live extremely well, but they didn't get voting shares in the family business. They didn't get board seats. They didn't get to make decisions. Before you get angry about the sexism, and yes, it absolutely was sexist, understand what this did structurally. It concentrated decision-making power. In 1860, the entire Rothschild banking empire was controlled by maybe 8 to 10 men. All blood relatives, all raised in the business, all speaking the same language, literally and figuratively. Decisions could be made quickly. Strategies could stay secret. There were no outsiders in the boardroom leaking information or pursuing personal agendas. Contrast this with a modern public corporation. Disney has a board of directors with people from different industries, different backgrounds, different agendas. That diversity can be valuable for innovation, sure, but it also creates friction, slow decision-making, leaks, competing interests. The Rothschilds ran their empire like a military operation, centralized command, distributed execution. And they had another advantage that's almost disappeared in the modern world: patience. See, when your wealth is measured in quarters and fiscal years, you make short-term decisions. You chase quarterly earnings. You optimize for this year's bonus. But when your wealth is measured in generations, you think differently. The Rothschilds financed governments. They bought bonds that wouldn't mature for 30 years. They invested in infrastructure projects that wouldn't pay off until their grandchildren were running the business. They played the long game because the game was never about them individually. It was about the family name lasting forever. In 1875, the family financed the British government's purchase of the Suez Canal shares. The cost? £4 million, about $480 million today. The payoff? Control over one of the most strategic trade routes in the world for the next century. That's not a trade your average hedge fund manager makes. That's multi-generational thinking. And here's where it gets interesting for you, watching this right now. Because the Rothschild model isn't dead, it's just evolved. Let me tell you about something called a family office. In 2025, there are approximately 10,000 family offices operating globally. These are private wealth management firms that serve a single ultra-wealthy family, not multiple clients, one family. Sound familiar? The Waltons, heirs to the Walmart fortune, run one. So do the Mars family, the candy empire. So do the Kochs. These aren't public companies with shareholders. These are private operations designed to do exactly what the Rothschilds figured out in 1812. Keep the money in the family. Here's how a modern family office works. Let's say your great-grandfather built a business worth $5 billion. Instead of splitting it between his 4 children, he puts it in a trust. That trust is managed by a family office. The family office invests the money, manages properties, handles philanthropy, and pays distributions to family members. But here's the key. The individual family members don't own the assets directly. They benefit from them, but they can't sell their share and walk away. They can't make unilateral decisions. They're beneficiaries, not owners. It's the Rothschild model, updated for the 21st century. And it works for the same reason. It keeps the wealth consolidated. It prevents one reckless generation from blowing everything. It ensures professional management, even if the current generation isn't business savvy. The Walton family, 6 heirs to Sam Walton's fortune, are collectively worth about $250 billion. They own roughly 50% of Walmart through a series of trusts and family holding companies. They didn't split the company 6 ways. They kept it whole. Or look at the Mars family. They still own 100% of Mars Inc., the company behind M&M's, Snickers, and a dozen other brands. Worth an estimated $160 billion. 3 generations later, and they've never gone public, never sold out, never fragmented. Why? Because they followed the code. Now here's what most people don't realize. This isn't just about keeping rich people rich. This is about understanding how wealth actually works. Most people think wealth is about how much money you make. It's not. It's about how much you keep. And more importantly, how long you keep it. There's a saying in wealth management circles, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. It means your grandfather builds the fortune in his shirt sleeves, working hard. Your father enjoys it in a suit, managing it. And you lose it, back in your shirt sleeves, working for someone else. Research backs this up. Approximately 70% of wealthy families lose their fortune by the 2nd generation. By the 3rd generation, that number jumps to 90%. Why? Because they don't have a code. Let's talk about what kills wealth. First, division. You split the inheritance equally among your children because it seems fair, and it is fair, but each child splits it among their children, and those children split it among theirs. By the 4th generation, your billion-dollar fortune is 100 people, each inheriting 10 million. Still nice, sure, but not dynasty money, not power money. Second, incompetence. Your grandfather was a genius businessman. Your father was decent at managing what he inherited. You're a painter, or a musician, or you just want to live a quiet life. Nothing wrong with that, but someone needs to run the empire, and if it's not you, it gets sold or mismanaged into the ground. Third, lifestyle inflation. The 1st generation builds wealth. The 2nd generation maintains it. The 3rd generation spends it. This isn't just a saying, it's math. Every generation further from the source gets more comfortable, takes fewer risks, and spends more freely. Fourth, taxes and lawsuits. Governments want their cut. Divorces split assets. Bad investments lose money. Without protection, wealth evaporates. But the Rothschilds built a system that defended against all of this. They prevented division by keeping ownership consolidated. They prevented incompetence by ensuring only trained family members had control. They prevented lifestyle inflation by separating ownership from distributions. You benefit from the wealth, but you don't control it. And they prevented external threats by using trusts, foundations, and legal structures that made the fortune nearly impossible to attack. It's a fortress, built over generations, and the walls are still standing. Now, in the 1900s, something changed. The Rothschilds started to fade from public view. The newspapers stopped writing about them. The conspiracy theories exploded, sure, but actual information, it dried up. Was this an accident? Not even close. See, they learned something else, something critical. Visibility is dangerous. When you're the richest, most powerful family in the world, and everyone knows it, you become a target. Governments regulate you. Competitors attack you. Revolutions come for you. So they went quiet. They stopped operating as Rothschild Bank. They started working through subsidiaries, investment vehicles, holding companies with boring names. They diversified out of banking into wine, real estate, mining, art. They spread the wealth across so many entities that no single person could track it. And here's the result. Today, nobody knows exactly how much the Rothschild family is worth. Estimates range from $400 billion to $2 trillion. Think about that. A swing of over $1 trillion. Because nobody can trace all the assets. That's not an accident. That's strategy. Compare this to Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. The world knows exactly how much they're worth, updated in real time every day. Their wealth is tied to public companies with stock tickers. They can't sneeze without it affecting their net worth. The Rothschilds? You have no idea what they own, and they want to keep it that way. This is the final evolution of the code, invisibility. So here's what you need to understand. The Rothschild secret isn't about banking. It's not about gold or diamonds or insider information, though they had all of that. The secret is structure. They built a system where wealth flows through generations without breaking apart, where decision-making stays concentrated in capable hands, where the family benefits from the fortune without being able to destroy it. And that system still works today. You see it in the Waltons, in the Mars family, in the Kochs, in every ultra-wealthy dynasty that survived past 3 generations. They all, consciously or not, follow the Rothschild playbook. Keep it whole. Keep it in the family. Keep it quiet. Now, most of us aren't managing billion-dollar fortunes, but the principles scale down. Think about this. You work your entire life, build up some savings, maybe own a house, maybe start a business. What happens when you die? If you split it equally among your kids and they split it among theirs, by the time your great-grandchildren are around, what you built is dust. But if you structure it, really structure it, using trusts, using family governance, using the lessons from the families that made it work, you can build something that outlasts you. That's what the Rothschilds figured out in 1812, and it's still the blueprint in 2025. The wealthy families that survive aren't the ones that make the most money. They're the ones that protect it the best. That's the code, that's the secret, and now you know it too.